Let's talk about subject pronouns in Spanish. Now, subject pronoun is a special type of pronoun, and it is used to replace a noun or another pronoun that is the subject of a verb. So, for instance, if we look at an English example, we might have something like Jorge walks. So this sentence has two parts. It has a verb, which is the action of the sentence, and it has a subject, or whoever is performing that action, in this case, Jorge. Now, what if we wanted to replace Jorge with the subject pronoun? Well, in English, the subject pronouns are I, you, he, she, it, we, and they. So which one would we use to replace Jorge? Well, he, because Jorge is a boy and singular, and we're talking about him in the third person. So before we delve into the Spanish subject pronouns, let's talk a little bit about how we can categorize our English subject pronouns. So we have I, you, he, she, it, we, and they. Now the reason I grouped them like this is because this way our rows give us point of view and our columns give us numbers, so singular or plural. So in our first row here, we have first person point of view. And that means that we're speaking as the person. So we say I, we, my, ours, things like that. In the second row, we have second person, which is you, and you can be singular or plural. So you're talking directly to someone else. So you go to the store, you ride a bike. And finally, in our third row, we have third person, and that means that we're talking about someone or something else. So he, she, it, and they. And again, this would be singular and this would be plural. Now let's talk about the Spanish subject pronouns. We can use the same groups, so we have first person, second person, third person, singular, and plural. But they're obviously going to be different words. So for I, the Spanish subject pronoun is yo. You, there are multiple ways to say you in Spanish, and they're divided between singular and plural. So for singular you can have tú, which is familiar, meaning you use it with family, friends, small children, people you know well, and with whom you're very comfortable. Now the other way to say singular you is usted, and this is more formal. It's used for people to whom you wish to show respect, so teachers, doctors, professionals, people like that, people with whom you are not familiar, so a strange adult, and really anyone to whom you wish to show respect. It's always a good bet to speak to an adult with usted. Then we have he and she, which are él, he, and ella, she. And in Spanish, there's no true word for it as a subject pronoun. So depending on the gender of the object, you can use either él or ella. All right, and then we come up and we see we, and that is nosotros, if the group is all male or a mixture of male and females, and nosotras, if the group is 100% female. Then we have you again, so this is plural you. So we can have vosotros, vosotras, which again are masculine and feminine. And these are used in Spain, and they are basically the plural of tú, so familiar you. So if you're speaking to a group of your friends, you would use vosotros. However, in Latin America, regardless of formality, you always use ustedes, so even a group of friends would be ustedes. And finally we have they, which is ellos, for, again, all male or a mixture of male and female, and ellas, which is all female. So let's shift our groupings just a little bit. But first let's talk about conjugation. So in English, we conjugate verbs differently depending on who is performing the action. For instance, you say, I run, but not he run. And you say he runs, but not we runs. So this difference in conjugation, or the way a verb ends, is based on the subject of the verb. In Spanish, it's the same thing. Our conjugation endings are grouped based on our subject pronouns. So in order to make this chart reflect the conjugation endings for verbs, we're going to move a few things around. In Spanish, usted is conjugated like he and she. So our group would be él, ella, usted, so he, she, and you. Tú is by itself here, so that stays the same. But over here, ustedes, like usted, is conjugated with its third person counterpart. So we have a group ellos, ellas, ustedes, so they or you, plural. And then vosotros, vosotras is by itself. So let's rewrite these and make it a little easier to understand. We have yo, I, tú, informal or familiar, singular you, él, ella, usted, he, she, and formal, singular you, nosotros, nosotros, nosotras, masculine and feminine we, vosotros, vosotras, masculine and feminine plural, informal you, and finally ellos, ellas, ustedes, they masculine, they feminine, and you plural. And I'm not going to designate this as being formal because in anywhere other than Spain, it is the only plural you. So now let's try taking some subjects that are nouns or groups of pronouns and replacing them with a single subject pronoun. So our first example will be Marta. Now there's a three-step process that I like to use when choosing subject pronouns. So the first thing you want to do is look at point of view. So in this case, we're talking about Marta, not to her or as her. So we want third person. So let's write down all the third person subject pronouns. We have él, ella, ellos, and ellas. So he, she, they, and they. Second, you want to look at number. So how many are there? Marta is singular. There's only one girl. So we can get rid of our plural subject pronouns over here. So that would be they and they. And we're left with él and ella. That doesn't really él and ella. All right, and finally, we want to look at gender. So Marta is a girl, so we need feminine, which means we can get rid of él or he, and we're left with ella, she. So we would replace Marta with ella. All right, let's try another one. And you'll notice that I rewrote those again, this time using the abbreviations for usted and ustedes, which are capital UD period and capital UDS period. So our second example, let's try something a little more challenging. We will do rico y yo. All right, so first thing is to look for point of view. And when you have two people, the first thing you want to do is look for first person. So first person first. If you don't find a first person pronoun in there, you'll look for second person second, And if you can't find a second person pronoun, so either tú, usted, ustedes, or vosotros, vosotras, then you look for third person third. So point of view, we look for first person first, and sure enough, there it is. So our point of view will be the first person. Our number, so our pronouns now are limited to yo and nosotros, nosotras, which are the only first person pronouns. So then we look at number, and we see that there are two people, Rico y yo. So we're going to have plural. So that means we can get rid of our singular option, yo. And finally, we look at gender. So Rico here is masculine, and yo, could be either masculine or feminine, but because there is at least one boy involved, we need to use the masculine pronoun nosotros. Let's try one more example. We will do, for example number 3, Juanita, Margarita, Luisa, Roberta, y Jaime. Okay, so first thing, point of view. We look for the first person. None of these are yo or nosotros, nosotras, so first person is not an option. We look for second person second. None are tú, usted, vosotros, vosotras, or ustedes, so we're left with the third person. Which makes sense because we're talking about all of these people, not directly to them. Next, we look for number. There are a lot of people involved, so obviously we're going to have a plural subject pronoun. So what are our third person plural options? Well, none of these are all singular, so we are left with ellos and ellas. So again, we're deciding based on gender, and we see feminine, 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 masculine. So which would this be? Well, even though it's a vast majority of girls, because there is one boy involved, we need the masculine subject pronoun ellos. So we eliminate ellas, and that is our choice, ellos. Alright, now you try these two examples, and then resume the video when you are finished. So our first example, tú, yo, we'll look at point of view. Point of view. The first person first, and sure enough, here we are. Yo is in the first person, so that will be our choice, which limits us to yo and nosotros or nosotras. So next we want to look at number, and since there's two people involved, we need plural, which allows us to eliminate yo, and we have nosotros, nosotras. And then we look at gender. And in this example, gender is a little bit ambiguous because tú could be either male or female, and yo could be either male or female. However, just to be safe, we'll default to the masculine and go with nosotros. Alright, our next example, we have Roberto y usted. So we look at point of view. So we look for first person first. It's not in there. So we look for second person second, and sure enough, usted is second person, so that would be our choice. And then we're involved, so this would be plural. So what are our second person plural options? Well, we have ustedes and vosotros, vosotras. So now let's look at gender. And we see that because there is one boy involved, this must be masculine, which allows us to eliminate vosotras, but we're still left with two options, ustedes and vosotros. Now you can probably guess that because usted is involved in the first subject here, we would use ustedes.